I was rummaging through some old boxes I had left for storage in my parents' basement. Most were filled with relics from my past. An old pair of shoes, random kitchen supplies, whatever this thing is, and a clock. Funny, I didn't remember buying the clock, but there it was. The more I studied it, the more I became intrigued by its strangeness. 3 small but long pieces of metal moving differently from one another. What exactly are they measuring? Sure, it's trying to tell me what time it is, but where is the time that it's measuring? I couldn't see it, I couldn't smell it, and I couldn't touch it. Was I supposed to hear it? Imagine pouring milk into a measuring cup. I can see that I have 1 cup of milk. Yet, if I set the cup aside and pour milk into a bowl, all I have is, well, a bowl of milk, with no idea of how much I've actually poured. The measuring cup is like that clock. It's used to measure something. The milk and time are the things they're measuring. The difference, however, is that unlike the milk, I can't show you the thing I'm measuring with a clock. I can't touch it or see it in the same way that I can touch and see milk. Or can I? As I continued to sift through boxes, I came across an old journal, one that had been written in many years ago. Its cover appeared to have long forgotten its author. As I read through its pages, discovering long-forgotten memories, I came across an entry talking about this very subject of time. Memories are more than sentimental images of our past. They're reflections of what always has and what always will exist. A moment occurs when life is split into the material and the immaterial. As time moves a moment into a memory, it doesn't cease to exist. It merely empties itself of all physical properties, because the physical world is bound by something that it is not. Time. Below, an image, or an illustration. A square moves along a plane, acting like a looking glass. The immaterial plane was dotted with a line. It's the square that made the immaterial into something material and observable to us. And what moved the square? Time. As I read this journal entry, I wondered if something about it might help me make sense of the clock that I held in my hands. In fact, this entry is very similar to something someone had written 2,000 years ago, a philosopher by the name of Plato. Writing in his work Timaeus, Plato described time as a moving image of eternity. His ideas on time were built from what can be considered one of Plato's most notable philosophical descriptions of the world, namely that there are 2 fundamental realms or realities which exist. There is the one we currently live in. Plato calls this the temporal realm. Then there is the immaterial realm, the realm beyond us, or as Plato calls it, the eternal realm. The temporal realm is fleeting, changing, and imperfect. It's the realm of becoming, where things come into being and pass away from being. The temporal realm is the world we experience through our senses, our everyday experience. The eternal realm is unchanging and perfect. It's the realm of being, where true reality resides. The eternal realm is inhabited by abstract forms or ideas, which are the ultimate reality or the true nature of the world around us. Imagine, for example, an apple. An apple in the temporal realm is one that you and I would be most familiar with. We can see it, hold it, smell it, and taste it. It comes in many shapes, sizes, and colors. Yet, if left out over time, it will decay, mold, and rot. Eventually, the apple will cease to exist. An apple in the eternal realm, however, is perfect in every way. It's perfectly ripe, perfectly shaped, perfectly sized, and unchanging, meaning that it will never rot, mold, or decay. Plato saw time as a dimension or aspect of the temporal realm which allows us to experience the eternal realm. He believed that time is a way of measuring the unfolding of events. Plato writes this: "He would make an eternal image, moving according to number of eternity, remaining in unity. This image, of course, is what we now call time." Much like a boat sailing across the sea, Plato believed that the realm we live in, the temporal realm, is like a raft floating through an endless sea, the eternal realm. The raft, of course, is us, and the sea is time. That part of the water which touches the raft is that small piece of eternity that we experience from moment to moment as we live our lives. For some, they've barely just set sail. Young and bursting with life, they charge full steam ahead into the abyss with a shiny, new, and unweathered raft. Others, however, lay adrift, being tossed from there to here on rafts that had been weathered and worn by their time at sea. Whether it be through a raft that sails on the sea of eternity, or through a looking glass that glides through the immaterial world, Plato shows us that time has never been a thing that we can hold in our hands like an apple, or measure like a bowl of milk. Instead, unlike milk, time stretches endlessly beyond the limits of our knowledge and perception. This is why Plato described it as being in the eternal realm, and precisely the reason why clocks are round, since a circle is a never-ending loop. Given an unlimited amount of power, that clock I held in my hands would continue ticking forever, going round and round, long after I'm gone, long after my children are gone, long after countries unknown to us have risen and fallen, and long after the earth has been erased from existence. That clock will continue ticking. I understand now why we might say that a clock doesn't truly measure time, or why I couldn't see the thing that a clock measures. It simply measures the movements of hands around its face. They're the tools that we use to mark our days. Time itself remains intangible, immaterial, something we only grasp through its effects, like the wrinkles on a face, the weathered car, the worn wood, or the echoes of our past. What I ultimately learned from that moment as I stood there staring at the clock can be summed up in two ways. First, value your time. I've heard it said that time is the only currency we spend without ever knowing how much time we have left. If time really isn't a tangible thing and it really is a part of the eternal realm, then there is no way of knowing for sure how much of it we were given to experience. We don't know how long our rafts will last before they give out. It might be a year from now or 20 years from now. All we know for certain is that our time will run out eventually. So what are you going to do with the time that you're given? How valuable is time to you? Think about it this way. If you work a full-time job, you're exchanging your time for money. That money allows you to buy things. So how many things do you need before you've sacrificed enough time? Remember, you will never get back that time once you've spent it. There are, of course, hundreds of answers to that question, and how you answer it is solely up to you. But the question itself is important to every so often think about and reflect on. The second thing is this. Recognize that while we may not control time itself, we can control where our raft is headed. Just like the raft on the eternal sea, we're all floating through something far greater than we can understand. But rafts don't sail well without direction. They drift. And we drift too, when we let the currents of distraction, regret, fear, or routine carry us without reflection or self-awareness. In ancient times, it was easy to get lost at sea. The ocean looks and feels like it never ends, stretching as far as the eye can see and beyond. So how did ancient sea travelers maintain their course? The stars. Patterns in the stars served as guideposts to where they were and where they were headed. What made the stars so reliable is that they appeared relatively in the same place every night in the sky. They were consistent, unchanging, and dependable, unlike the sea on which the ships sailed. Plato's idea wasn't just that time is eternal, but that by the very nature of the eternal realm, there was something sustaining it which guides our journey through time. Plato, of course, is talking about God. For Plato, God was eternal, just, rational, perfect, unchanging, and the source of all good. As a Christian, I would nod my head and agree with everything that Plato has said. Yet, there is a difference between the God Plato saw and the God shown to us in the Bible. Plato saw God as an impersonal force or universal principle. In Timaeus, Plato would personify this principle as the demiurge, a force which crafted the world into existence from the chaos that existed before it, though the demiurge would remain an impersonal force. The Bible, however, paints a more detailed picture of a God who is more personal, more loving, more knowable, and more relational. We see this in the very beginning of the story of the Bible with God's creation of mankind. Then we see God in relationship with Adam in the garden. In fact, the entire story of the Bible can be summarized as God pursuing his people so that they can know him, love him, and enjoy him forever. To condense this second point, I might say this. If you're ever lost in the sea of time, don't forget to look at the stars. Losing our focus or our course happens to all of us at one point or another in our lives. We often become distracted, or we often wander far from where we were. In those moments when you feel like you're hopeless, or when you feel lost and confused, pursue the one thing which will never change. Pursue him who holds and sustains all things in his hands. And so, like sailors guided by stars in the dark, we fix our eyes on the one who does not drift, does not fade, and does not change. For while time may carry us forward on a sea we cannot tame, there is a steady hand above the waves, still, eternal, and sure.